Hello, everybody. As I wont to do, I am cross-posting between my podcast and my YouTube video in case you do not want to see my wonderful face, my wonderful, somewhat unshaven face. So here's the deal. Today's about Prop 8. Okay, Prop 8, I'm very honest about my biases, right? I'm a conservative Republican, right? That's anybody who knows, that's where I come from. So it's not surprising that I'm going to, can talk here a proposition that's supported by the Democratic Party, right? I mean, I don't think it's a good bill, but I think a lot of people, very nonpartisan, and frankly, probably a lot of Democrats, don't even think Prop 8's a good bill. Here's what Prop 8 does. Proposition 8 regulates kidney center dialysis treatments by saying that kidney center dialysis treatments can only charge 115% of the costs of certain direct costs, right? It then proceeds to define those costs, and this is where the conflict arises, right? Basically, opponents of Prop 8 say that these costs don't include managerial staff, they don't include janitorial staff, they only include certain employees, drugs, and necessities. So let's take a step back here. Prop 8 only regulates revenue, not profits, right? And you might think, well, if something regulates revenue, it must therefore regulate profits. True, but the problem is when you regulate revenue streams and not profit streams, that's when you get away from the so-called price gouging and, the so-called price gouging to what Prop 8 opponents fear, which is the closing of dialysis clinics, right? And even the Legislative Analysis Office says, look, this might lead to the closing of dialysis clinics. And the reason why is, I'm going to post two articles on this. One's from the LAO, one's from a nonpartisan research site, which, I read the bill, right? Pretty clear that there are certain costs that are not covered, right? I just kind of assumed, right, all operating costs would be covered, but when I started reading online that they weren't, I sort of took a look again and kind of did some of the research, and not all costs are covered here, which means essentially you're telling us, the bill basically tells people that you can't charge 15% more than certain operations, right? But it doesn't include all operations. It just includes some of those operations, which means it's entirely possible for a kidney dialysis clinic to charge more when you include all the operations that should be included and not obtain not only a profit, but not even be in the black at all, right? They would be operating in the red, which of course inevitably means that these dialysis centers are going to close. The main argument is that these are union supporters. The SEIU kind of pushed this bill, right? And I don't even care about that, right? If SEIU pushed a good bill, even if it was for some weird legislative jockeying, more power to them. Right? I don't care that SEIU is pushing a bill, even though I'm not a big fan of SEIU. What I care about is what the bill does. And it doesn't do a lot of good for a lot of people. This doesn't improve kidney dialysis care at all, whatsoever. This does not require kidney dialysis centers to improve, if they are in fact even unimproved. And from what I've seen, there are many kidney dialysis centers that are fine. They get 4 or 5 star ratings, right? Many are not. And that's the thing. But even if you buy the concept, right, which is kind of why it's useless to research this specific point. Even if you buy the point that dialysis centers are not good, right, that they're incredibly subpar in California, you would still Prop 8 wouldn't be the way to fix it, right? Because Prop 8 doesn't do anything about regulating the standard of care of dialysis centers. It does none of that. No, all it says is dialysis centers can only charge a certain amount and they have to rebate the stuff that they overcharge, right? It tries to say you can only have a 15% profit margin, but what it inevitably says is you can only have a revenue margin that's a certain amount, and it leaves profits kind of, it touches profits, but it goes beyond touching profits. It touches necessary revenue streams to actually pay people that are part of these clinics, right? So it's open up to interpretation, but here's the thing. There's a very decent chance the dialysis centers will close, right? And as any population ages, you're going to need dialysis centers. The other thing that this bill does It says that you can't discriminate between Medicare, Medi-Cal patients and, private insurers. And let's roll back here. Because when we talk about rebates, so if Prop 8 says, like under Prop 8, if you, as a dialysis center overcharge, then what you would have to do is rebate the person you overcharged. Now you might think, oh, okay, so we're going to rebate some dialysis patients, some good money. Except for one small problem. Most patients are insured, right? They're either insured with Medicare or Medi-Cal, which they get charged less anyway. So Medicare, Medi-Cal, we're not even in this 15% threshold to begin with. We're really talking about private insurers, right? And if you're talking about private insurers are the ones that are going to get the money, right? Not patients, right? Everyone who talks about these exorbitant bills, and I agree, some of them are extremely exorbitant, sort of fails to understand that most of these costs are borne by insurance companies, right? Not the dialysis patients themselves. So, when you're talking about giving people money back, you're giving money back to the insurance companies and assuming that insurance companies are going to kick it back in the form of less copays to other people that are involved, right? That's a fairly specious argument. I don't know if that's true, right? I don't know if insurance companies are going to do that. So even your big cost-saving advantage isn't a legitimate advantage. So when you look at these arguments, the main argument is that dialysis patients are going to save money. That's speculative at best, right? Because who's really going to save money are their insurers. The second problem is that when you say we're discriminating and we're not allowing, or when you say we're not allowing people, the kidney centers to pick and choose their patients, you're forcing a lot of them to operate at a loss for a second reason. Specifically, when you do the Medi-Cal thing, Medi-Cal charges less, right? They pay less to dialysis centers. They're a bulk insurer. They get to do that. They represent a lot of people in the state, more than any one single private insurer, right? So they get to push their weight around. So if you're a dialysis center, right, and you don't want to accept Medi-Cal because you lose money, right, now you can't do that. Now you have to take on something that causes you to lose money. That's something that's not really talked about here. It forces a lot of these dialysis centers to accept Medi-Cal patients, which why it may sound good as kind of a moral goal, mandating that as a reason and as a means to get to that goal will allow and force a lot of these centers to close, even before you get to the 15% topic, right? But when you combine that with the 15% topic, then it's even worse, because a lot of these areas can't charge enough that are going to operate at the revenue. That's the concern of Prop 8 opponents, and I think it's the concern of a lot of people. This does nothing to improve care. This does nothing to improve the lives of dialysis patients, and probably will make their lives worse by closing their dialysis centers, right? That's why you see a lot of these left-wing media organizations like the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Jose Mercury, and the Los Angeles Times all say vote no, right? Most of these entities are saying no, and it's a cross-ideological spectrum. So while I am trying to be neutral here, I don't really see a lot of benefit to Prop 8, even to the people it purports to protect, right? And I do see a lot of drawback. So at the end of the day, I would say vote no on Prop 8, because in my opinion, it creates kind of a double front of a way to extract dialysis centers' revenue streams. One, by the 15% mark, which doesn't even include all of their operating costs, and therefore will force them to operate in the red. And two, by forcing them to accept all patients, including patients who are on Medicare and Medi-Cal that charge less to begin with, which is even worse when you're taking away their private, insurer revenue stream, right? So you really are doing a double front attack on these clinics and allowing them not to operate. And yes, I get that a lot of these clinics are big center corporations, and I get that. But at the same time, corporations are kind of needed in this country to function, right? So if we're going to do something, let's do something that benefits the patient, right? Let's do something that increases care if that's an issue. Let's do something that, doesn't break people's banks, right? This doesn't do that. This does none of that. So I really don't think people should vote yes on this bill. Anyway, with that, I'm going to probably do a Prop 10 video later today. I'm going to pump these out so that by the time Monday comes across, I can do some election analysis. So anyway, thank you very much. Have a nice day.